5:30. That's when the whole neighborhood went quiet. Not silent. Quiet. The kind of quiet where you could hear a screen door creak 3 houses down because everybody was inside at the table at the exact same time. No phones buzzing, no one eating in front of a screen. Just a family, a table, and whatever was cooking on the stove since 4 o'clock. That was dinner in the 1950s. And I promise you, once I walk you through it, you're going to feel something you didn't expect to feel about a meal that happened 70 years ago. Let me set the scene. The father comes home around 5:15. Hat still on, lunch pail in hand, shoes still carrying the dust of a factory floor or a construction site. He doesn't go straight to the table. He goes to the bathroom first, washes his hands and his face, because you didn't sit down to dinner smelling like your workday. That was a rule nobody had to say out loud. The mother has been at that stove since the middle of the afternoon. Not because the meal was fancy, it almost never was, but because everything took time back then. There was no shortcut. Meat had to be browned slow. Vegetables had to be trimmed by hand. Bread, if it wasn't bought that morning from the corner bakery, was rising in a bowl under a damp towel since lunchtime. And the meal itself? Simple, almost embarrassingly simple by today's standards. A pot roast, if it was a good week, cooked low for hours until a fork went through it like butter. Potatoes and carrots boiled right alongside it in the same pot, soaking up all that flavor. A vegetable from a can, because canned vegetables were the modern miracle of the decade. String beans, peas, whatever was cheapest that week, and bread. Always bread. White, soft, store-bought or homemade, and there for one reason only. To soak up whatever was left on the plate, because nothing, and I mean nothing, was left behind. Here's the part that gets me every time I picture it. There were assigned seats, not written down anywhere, just understood. Father at the head, mother closest to the kitchen, because she was the one getting up 11 times during the meal for more bread, more milk, more of whatever the littlest one had knocked over. The children in the same chairs they'd sat in since they were old enough to hold a fork. And you waited. Every single person waited until the last plate was set down and the father picked up his fork first. That was it. That was the signal. Nobody reached before that. Nobody complained about what was on their plate either, because there was no other option being cooked in that kitchen. What was on the table was dinner. If you didn't eat it, you didn't eat. Doesn't sound like much, does it? A pot roast, some canned peas, a basket of bread. But stay with me, because underneath that table, something enormous was happening every single night. And almost nobody talked about it while it was happening. That table was where a father, exhausted from 10 hours on his feet, found out his daughter got an A on her spelling test. That was where a mother, who hadn't left the house except to walk to the grocer, heard about the schoolyard fight her son got into, and decided quietly how she was going to handle it after dishes were done. That table was the only hour of the day where every single person in that house was in the same room, looking at each other, actually listening. There was a woman I read about. Grew up in Ohio in the 1950s, one of 6 kids. She said the thing she remembers most isn't the food at all. It's her father's hands. Rough, cracked from factory work, folded together while her mother said grace every single night, no matter how hungry everybody was or how good it smelled. She said as a kid she thought that pause before eating was just a rule. Now, as an old woman herself, she says it was the most important 60 seconds of the whole day. It was the moment the entire family stopped being tired, stopped being hungry, and just sat there, together, on purpose. That's the part we lost. Not the pot roast, not the canned peas. We lost the table, because here's the truth nobody wants to hear. In 1955, a family sitting down to dinner wasn't a lifestyle choice. It wasn't something you had to plan for or protect on a calendar. It was just what happened every night, because there was nothing pulling anybody away from it. No screens in every pocket. No practices scheduled at 6 different times for 6 different kids. No takeout apps promising dinner in 20 minutes, so nobody had to cook, or gather, or wait. The frozen TV dinner shows up right around this time, you know. Swanson rolls it out in 1954, and it's marketed as a miracle, a full meal already cooked, eaten in front of the television. And it was a miracle in its way. But something quiet died the first night a family chose the television over the table. Nobody noticed it happening. It didn't happen all at once. It happened one skipped dinner at a time, one tray table at a time. Until an entire generation later, sitting down together every night felt less like normal life and more like a special occasion. I think about that a lot. How something so ordinary, a pot roast, a basket of bread, a mother calling everyone in from outside because it was ready, could hold an entire family together without anyone realizing that's what it was doing. There's a phrase my own grandmother used to say, and I didn't understand it until I was much older. She said, "Nobody in this house went to bed not knowing they were loved." And when I asked her how she knew that, she said, "Because we ate dinner together, every night, no matter what. That's it. That's the whole secret. It wasn't the roast. It wasn't the peas from a can. It was the fact that for 1 hour a night, in a house with no air conditioning and one bathroom and barely enough money to get through the month, everybody stopped what they were doing and looked at each other. We have more food now than any generation in human history. We have refrigerators the size of that entire 1950s kitchen. We have anything we want, delivered in 20 minutes, to our door. And somehow we've never been hungrier for what they had. So here's what I want you to do. Tonight, not tomorrow, tonight, turn off the television. Put the phones in another room. Sit down with whoever is under your roof, even if it's just one other person. Even if dinner is nothing more than eggs on toast. Wait until everyone's seated. Say something out loud before you eat, whether it's a prayer or just a thank you to whoever cooked it. See if you feel what they felt. If this story meant something to you, stay with me a little longer. There's another one waiting. And if your family still does this, if you still sit down together every night, tell me in the comments. Tell me where you're from and what's usually on the table. I have a feeling there are more of you out there than you think.